What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic Saturday so far. This is NYG Jeffy T85 here. And obviously, we all heard about the news yesterday. Some Mets fans have already moved on from Jacob deGrom. Some Mets fans are a little bit sad, like myself. You know, if you're a younger Mets fan, like I heard just on the radio not that long ago, if you're a younger Mets fan, you're very much attached to a Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom was one of your guys. You pretty much grew up watching this guy. You're an older fan. You understand the money's not worth it for a guy that's 34 years old breaking down. I understand that. And it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment period. But now the question is, what do the New York Mets do next? What is their counter move after Jacob deGrom departed in free agency? You have a couple of guys that are out there that the New York Mets could pivot to, and you could even argue that the Mets have to do a couple of moves in terms of, guys they bring back in free agency and guys that go out there and try to sign in free agency. And then I'm going to get to the other big free agent for the New York Mets, and that, of course, is Brandon Nimmo. Now, first to start off with who the Mets might go after next. Obviously now, according to John Heyman of MLB.com, it sounds like the Mets are going to start going more after Justin Verlander as well as Carlos Rodon and Japanese pitcher Kodai Senga. I think the Mets have to at least try to sign one of these guys. Senga, Rodon, or Verlander. You have to sign three. You have to sign one of the three of them. That's a must. You have to sign one of these three to try to alleviate the loss of Jacob deGrom. And then you also have to think about that Taijuan Walker and Chris Bassitt are both currently free agents, although the Mets have interest in re-signing one or both of them back to the team this year. Because obviously right now, as it stands, the New York Mets rotation is Max Scherzer, who is 39 years old, approaching 40 years old, who broke down towards the end of this past season. You have him right now at the... excuse me. You have him right now at the front of the rotation. You have... Carlos Carrasco, who they just picked up his option, but he's getting up there in age as well. And then you have guys like David Peterson and Tyler McGill, and then some of the guys you can go look at in the minor leagues for potential guys you could fit in there as starting pitchers. I apologize. The starting staff right now is an absolute mess. What are you going to do if you're the New York Mets in terms of your starting pitching staff? Who are you going to be able to go in there and replace a guy like Jacob deGrom and potentially Chris Bassitt and Taijuan Walker if they don't come back? Obviously, you can offer a guy like Justin Verlander a short-term deal if you don't feel confident giving him a 3, maybe even like a 4-year deal. For me, I would give him a 2-year deal, maybe around 45 to 50 million, could be more. Maybe throw some incentives in there. If he stays healthy, if he pitches a certain amount of pitches, then maybe you could think about bringing back Justin Verlander for a 3rd year. But honestly, for his age, he's getting up to a year 40. He did not pitch the past couple of years, pretty much, until this past season where he won a World Series and pitched great for the Houston Astros. But before that, he's been pretty much banged up the past couple of years. And also, he's getting up to his age 40. Do you really want to have your 2 headline starters be in their age 40? As good as Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander have been in their past, and both of them are pretty much locks for Hall of Fame, do you really want these 2 guys part of your foundation going forward? In terms of the number 1, number 2 starters on your team? And I like Carlos Rodon. He's a free agent right now. He has interest from a bunch of different teams, whether it's the Orioles, the San Francisco Giants, and the New York Yankees. Are you interested in bringing in a guy like Carlos Rodon, too, from a left side perspective? Because the Mets, besides David Peterson, don't have any left-handed starting pitching. And obviously it would be nice to have another guy from the opposite side that can be able to pitch from the left-hand side of the mound. So I would not mind if they bring in a guy like Carlos Rodon. And then obviously you have Kodai Senga, which is the complete unknown, but everything you hear is that this kid has got a lot of strong upside to be able to come into the major leagues and be able to be an effective starting pitcher. And then you have to think about, what do you do with Chris Bassitt and what do you do about Taijuan Walker? Because I'm telling you, the Mets pitching staff is probably not going to be better next year. Unless Justin Verlander can pitch as good as he is this past season, losing Jacob deGrom is a major blow to this starting rotation. And that's going to tie into my interest when it comes to Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo right now is the hottest commodity in terms of his analytics and everything. The way people look at analytics nowadays, Brandon Nimmo is an analytics dream. And he's right now being courted by a whole lot of teams. The Giants, the Rays, the Blue Jays, and the Yankees all have interest in Brandon Nimmo, as well as the Mets, who are trying to bring him back on a deal. Because they got the fact that he actually stayed healthy this year. In fact, Brandon Nimmo, he played in 151 games this past season, so he only missed 9 games he only missed 11 games this past season. He actually had a pretty solid season overall. He had 102 runs scored, 64 RBIs for a leadoff spot, 16 home runs. He batted .274. He had 580 at-bats with an OPS of 800. A slugging percentage of .433 and an on-base percentage of .367, which is really good. And he had 3 stolen bases. Nimmo is like the engine of that New York Mets team, and he's only 29 years old, approaching his age 30 season. But he's going to be out there commanding like a 5-year, 120, 130, maybe even $140 million deal. Are the Mets willing to go that high for a player like Brandon Nimmo, as important as he is for this team? I think the fact that you lost Jacob deGrom makes it more important to bring back a guy like Brandon Nimmo. Not just because he's a homegrown Met, but because of the fact that he's so important to this team and is the engine of this franchise. You need to have a guy like Nimmo at the top of the lineup because he's that guy that gets on base and sets you up for guys like Marte, McNeil, Lindor, Alonso, etc. And obviously, the Mets need to start getting some more bats in this lineup. They need more bats in this lineup. Because of the fact that their lineup is one of the biggest reasons why they sunk at the end of the season and couldn't get it done in the postseason, you need to add some more bats to this lineup. Because you have a hole at catcher, you have arguably a hole at third base, you have a hole at one of the outfield positions. I mean, there's holes on this team right now. Who's the guys you can count on with Nimmo being a free agent? Marte, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil. That's it. I mean, I know you're thinking about bringing up the young guys from the prospects, like Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez, even a Ronnie Mauricio. But what are these guys right now? That's the thing. You're going to put a lot of faith in a bunch of young players and also part-time players, like when they brought back Daniel Vogelbach. No disrespect to Vogelbach. He's a nice player, but he should not be in a prominent role for this team. We need hitters on this team. The Mets need to get more hitting, and it starts with bringing back Brandon Nimmo. And then you can go out there and look for a Trey Turner if you want to put him in the infield. Maybe shift McNeil to the outfield if you lose Nimmo. A lot's going to depend on what happens with Brandon Nimmo. Because if the Mets lose Nimmo too, then it's going to make it even more urgent to go out there and make a major move. And the first thing right now, the Mets, their starting pitching staff and their bullpen are in shambles right now. They're in shambles. They have 2/5 of their starting rotation. They just lost their longest tenured Met, and they just lost their ace of their baseball team. What are you going to do next? And now you have your leadoff hitter and one of your best on-base percentage guys in Brandon Nimmo, who's currently a free agent that's being courted by 5 teams, including the Mets. You have your entire bullpen pretty much that's free agents. And like I mentioned, 2/5 of your starting rotation is back, and it's very hard for me to trust Carlos Carrasco on a game-in and game-out basis because he's getting up there in age. He's had injury problems. He's been wildly inconsistent. And Max Scherzer is approaching his age 40 season. For me, you have to try to get Brandon Nimmo back on some type of deal. Re-sign him, bring him back to this team. He's the engine of this offense. Go out there and get a couple more bats. You can have faith in the kids if you want. Have faith in a guy like Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez, Ronnie Mauricio, all these young kids you're going to probably be bringing up and giving them a shot. And then supplement the potential losses in the starting rotation. Starting with, if you want to bring in Justin Verlander on a 2-year deal, I'm fine with that. But make it 2 years at most for a decent amount of money. And I would even argue you should maybe even go after and get two of these guys. Get maybe a Senga and a Verlander, maybe a Rodon and a Verlander. Get two of these guys in. I have no issues if they let Bassitt and or Walker go, because I don't trust them either. There's nobody in the starting rotation I 100% trust in right now going into this season. And currently constructed, without Brandon Nimmo right now, there's 3, maybe 4 guys I trust in that lineup. McNeil, Lindor, Alonso, and Marte are probably the only guys I trust in that lineup currently on this team. I don't trust Mark Canha. I think he's a part-time player at best. I definitely don't trust the catching position. I can't put a whole lot of faith in Eduardo Escobar. He's a nice player. He came on strong late in the season, but he's wildly inconsistent. He's getting up there in age. And then a bunch of these young players, I want to put faith in them, but they're young players and they got to develop. So like a lot of Mets fans have said, this team has got a lot to work to do. They have a lot of work to do this offseason, and it starts at the winter meetings starting tomorrow. They have a lot of work to do starting tomorrow at the winter meetings. They need to go out there and make some moves. And hopefully they'll be able to go out there and do that. Because right now, it's a major concern with this baseball team. The starting rotation is a mess. The bullpen is a mess. And the lineup is lacking some punch. Hopefully this team can go out there, bring back Nimmo, go out there and get another impact bat in the middle of that lineup, maybe 2. If you want to trust your young guys, that's fine. And then go out there and supplement and resupplement your starting pitching and get some bullpen arms. I'm curious to see what Billy Epler and this Mets team is going to do this offseason. I'm still stinging from the Jacob deGrom loss. I don't know who to blame. At this point, I'm not blaming anybody. It is what it is. deGrom just sounds like he didn't want to be here anymore, which is a shame. But maybe it has to do with the fact that Scherzer got that big contract from the Mets last year, and the Mets weren't willing to give that to deGrom. And the Fab Five, the Mets have been a team that's been based around starting pitching for so many years. Well, guess what? It's not worked anymore. The Mets have tried starting pitching over and over and over again. It's never worked. And now the last of that Fab Five is gone. So maybe it's time for you, this team, to try a different concept. Maybe you try to go with more of a hitting philosophy and try to beef up that lineup and get yourself some serviceable starting pitchers. And beef up that bullpen. Now you got Edwin Diaz back at the closer position. But the Mets have tried starting pitching over the years. It's never worked. Try a different concept. Try something different this time. Go with more of a hitting aspect. Add some more beef and hitters in that lineup and see what happens. But it's going to be interesting to see what this Mets team does going forward. But that's just what I want to say about the Mets and what I think they should do after the Jacob deGrom fallout when he signed over there with the Texas Rangers. So I thank you very much, everybody. If you guys like this video, hit the like button below. Sub up if you haven't already to NYGJeffyT85 for more breaking news, updates, and chatter surrounding the New York Mets. Turn on the bell for notifications on the next video or short dropping on the channel surrounding the New York Mets. And let me know in the comment section what you think the New York Mets should do next. After the Jacob deGrom fallout, and who they should target in terms of starting pitching, relief pitching, and in terms of their lineup. And if you agree that Brandon Nimmo has become numero uno to bring back to this baseball team heading into the rest of this offseason, if you think that he is the guy that the Mets can ill afford to lose right now, and if they end up losing Nimmo, what do the Mets do next? I'm curious to hear what you guys believe the Mets should do next now in this offseason to supplement the loss of Jacob deGrom, potential loss of some of the bullpen guys, potential loss of Brandon Nimmo, and of course, Taijuan Walker and Chris Bassitt, who are free agents. So I thank you very much. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Take it easy, and let's go New York Mets. All you got to do is you got to believe in those boys from Queens.